So, welcome everyone. My name is Judy Flattery. I'm currently the president of this organization. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. Let me tell you a little bit about the Humanist Society of Santa Barbara. We do have a website. We also have a meetup site where you can see our upcoming events. And we do record these videos and post them on our YouTube channel so that if you ever miss one of our presentations, you can catch up with it by watching it on YouTube. I'll turn it over to Margaret to introduce the Free Thought Society, who's co-hosting this meeting with us today.
Hello, everyone. On behalf of the Free Thought Society, as its founder, as well as the current president, welcome to the February 15th event featuring my friend Thomas Dixon. We are so pleased to be co-hosting this event with the Humanist Society of Santa Barbara. And like the Humanist Society of Santa Barbara, the Free Thought Society is a 501c3 educational nonprofit organization. We were founded almost 35 years ago. You can find us at the web at www.ftsociety.org. And to thank you for attending today, the Free Thought Society is offering a complimentary e-zine to all who are interested in what we do, what we advocate, what we offer, and we do have volunteer opportunities as well. The Free Thought Society e-zine is published quarterly. And we love to publish journey stories and other free thought and or humanist related articles. So if you are a writer, please know that we would like to include your voice in a future publication. And thanks again for attending today. Now I'm going to share the introduction of Thomas Dixon with Judy Flattery.
Yes, thank you. So Thomas Dixon is the author of a memoir on how he nearly died, then switched to living a life using digital memory strategies. He's an author of a book which is titled, I'm Sorry, That's Awesome, Inventing a Solution for Memory Loss. He's the inventor of Memory, which is a digital memory mobile application service. The story about that is that near the end of 2010, Thomas was out for a run near his parents' house when he was struck by a car and injured very severely. Since that day, his memory hasn't been the same. In particular, his episodic memory, specific autobiographical details like where he was, who he met, what he ate, and the like, has been compromised by this traumatic brain injury that he sustained that November afternoon. Since inventing memory, Thomas speaks and writes on the role of technology's benefits for faulty episodic memory. His memory difficulty has not slowed him down. In his personal life, he enjoys spending New Year's Eve in a new country every year, traveling the world and learning along the way, paying attention particularly to things that he thought that were true but turned out to be false. While living in his native city of Philadelphia, he continues to explore the intersections of culture and memory. And aside from making time to learn more about the world, he taught ESL in South Korea, even returning to visit his middle school in Seoul a decade later for a visit, while also meeting several of his former students during that trip.
I first heard of Thomas on a television show, The Doctors, and I was so
Oh my
impressed with
goodness.
I was so impressed with his rational and creative thinking, as well as the way he
Mhm.
went about problem solving to overcome his memory difficulties. During his interview on The Doctors, he disclosed that he lived in Philadelphia. I immediately contacted Thomas to compliment him about his journey and his problem-solving techniques. We became fast friends. Since then, his writings has appeared in a wide variety of publications, including the American Humanist Association's magazine, The Humanist, and the Journal of American Mensa. Thomas has also written pieces for Global Vantage and the Association of School Psychologists of Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania Psychological Association, and many, many others. He has presented and or taught at institutions including the Epilepsy Foundation of Eastern Pennsylvania, Temple University, Pennsylvania Council on Brain Injury, Penn Museum, and the Geographical Society of Philadelphia. Media pieces about his life have appeared through a variety of groups, including American Mensa, No Barriers, BuzzFeed, The Pulse, Newsworks, and DirecTV. As a world traveler, he has been to over 20 countries and looks forward to setting foot in many more. Welcome, Thomas. It's so nice to see you.
Wow, what a thoughtful and thorough introduction. Thank you. I'm even a little nervous to meet myself in this context. I really appreciate that. But thank you. Thank you, Margaret. Of everyone, thank you for coming to my talk. Margaret, wow, mentioning the doctors. That show is not even on TV anymore. I would like be surprised about that. So, yes, everyone, thank you for coming to my talk. I wanted to focus on this topic of how Valentine's Day became secular for a variety of reasons, as we know that holidays are not static. We know that they will certainly change over time and have changed over time, and I'll be getting into that throughout my talk. I mentioned, or we mentioned about my New Year's Eve trips, and that's actually what my next book will be about. And I have given talks related to that, such as at the Penn Museum. I'm going to share with you all a link at the end of this talk that did a great job of WHYY combining my two stories, the memory compartment era part and the international travel part. It's one of my favorite media pieces. How Valentine's Day became secular. So I think this is kind of a gimme, but what's my favorite holiday? Everybody?
New Year's
Next.
Eve.
Yes. Given that introduction, I did not think it would. Next slide, please. Yes, New Year's Eve. Congratulations. I was not drinking at that time. I swear, I do not encourage underage drinking. I am holding my dad's beer at whatever age I am at that time. I promise you. And that photo to the next to it, the slide, is when I was in the Burj Khalifa. I was celebrating New Year's Eve in Dubai. I happened to be there the year that they celebrated the world record for fireworks. I just happened to grab everybody there, and I said, I traveled the world for New Year's, come on. Everybody just joined me for what I think is one of my best photos from these international trips. I even have a tourist t-shirt on. As you can see, it's an illustration of a camera. I thought that was just a pretty cute coincidence as well. So, getting into it, just what was Valentine's Day back in the day? Well, how far back are we talking about? Really, there's just not much conclusive proof as to what Valentine's Day was or had been. It's just uncertain. There are at least 50 stories of different saints named Valentine. And all we know really is that the conclusion. It's currently a $25 billion industry. The Valentine's Day celebrations, the cards, the gifts, all of that. Celebrated by over 50 countries worldwide. What holiday am I referring to if I say the one that was before Valentine's Day? Any guesses? What it used to be? Well, the
Lupercalia.
holiday, correct, Lupercalia. That
Oh,
is what the holiday used to be. Lupercalia, a Roman festival we see going back to the 600s BCE, actually, and held on around February 15th. The focus being on fertility and spring. And boy, did the Romans act in a certain way. You would not be surprised, really, to think of animal sacrifices as part of the holiday, as could be expected, and then, well, games. Maybe not Yahtzee, but other games you would imagine. Not Preferred, obviously not appropriate, but they would strike young women with animal skin in order to increase their fertility. And that being the idea of what would work. And then by the 5th century, Lupercalia became absorbed into Christianity. And then it took hundreds of years later for it to have romantic meaning. This happens a lot, as you can see in cultures, that rather than trying to stop the group from celebrating a holiday that they have been celebrating historically, co-opt it, absorb it, turn it into what is a holiday that your group can celebrate as well, and then get everybody on a similar enough page. So Lupercalia becoming what romantic meanings and Valentine's Day ultimately became. So what about the romance part here? Is this a holiday for the birds? I mention that because Chaucer, Geoffrey Chaucer, had a poem or story called The Parliament of Fowls, in which 3 male eagles had made their case for one single female eagle, yet she chooses none of them. Great. And that females being enabled enough to say no to any male. And I thought that was an amusing contribution, actually, for Valentine's Day, given how we expect the pairing up or partnering up. And an interesting and amusing contribution for what ended up not being the case. Now, as I was saying before, we cover a wide time, and we're looking here at roughly the 1340s to the 1400s for the release of this book, is my understanding. Now, here's one I don't think everyone knows. What is the earliest year of the first known Valentine's Day card? Any guesses?
1415.
All right, we got a 1415. Anybody else?
1212.
We got a 1212. Okay. A or D? Anybody else? We got B, we got C. All right. Seems like we got a range of answers. It is 1415. So clearly, it's been around for a long time, long before the quote unquote industry of Valentine's cards manifested. So, letters to our lovers, that idea. And we see here a couple of aspects. Now, the earliest known Valentine was considered to be a poem from 1415 by Charles L'Orleans during his imprisonment, sent to his wife. We see here Valentine's cards began looking at the 18th century, notes and gifts, all that around that time. And then it eventually became a popular tradition in the US in the 1840s, we're seeing. So how much of a change over time, as we would expect, that it just grew and grew? It is the second largest card sending holiday behind, any guesses?
Christmas.
Yes. Considering I'm not going to count everyone's birthdays as different holidays, yes, it is the second largest card sending holiday behind Christmas.
Oh.
I was looking into it and I watched from a documentary preparing for this talk, a documentary from 2024 that shared how 1 billion cards are sent worldwide per year. So that was quite a surprise for me. Now we can get into a bit of Valentine's Day symbols, all the things that we know. And I was curious getting ready for this talk, exactly where did all of these symbols come from? Everything that we associate with Valentine's Day. How did each one of these begin? If we're looking at red roses, it became recognized in a sense of flower languages. In the 1800s England, the flowers and the colors having various meanings. I read here about how Lady Montagu wrote letters home infusing over a version of the Turkish, so originating from Turkey perhaps, flower language. But she had seemed to misinterpret the custom, which actually had more to do with rhyming words than about the flowers themselves. However, that concept of flower languages caught on, and roses became ever more tightly linked to romantic love, as you could imagine. Now, Cupid, that relates back to Greek mythology, as adopted by the Romans. Eros, the more recent iteration of the god, became a cute little kid named Cupid. And that happened to be a synonym, which translated also to the word desire. I thought that was intriguing. I learned quite a bit getting into this talk, thankfully. And then we have chocolates, how that became more of a snack instead of how it originated as a drink, considered. And we see here that in 1861, a British chocolatier, Richard Cadbury, maybe relation, no relation, Cadbury eggs, who knows, began producing beautifully designed packages that were known as fancy boxes. And then 7 years later, in 1868, he applied those ideas to the first heart-shaped boxes of chocolates for Valentine's Day. I tried to add some questions here. How much were people expected to spend on Valentine's Day this year? And if anyone is still getting deeply discounted chocolates, maybe we can add to that total. But what was the guess for how much people were going to spend? Any guesses?
A.
Okay. A. Everyone else?
I'll go with D.
D. Okay. C. So yes, of course, that is still considered an epic amount of money, I would say. Yeah, of course, quite a bit of money, as you can imagine. Worldwide, as we were saying, 50 countries. I just have to imagine that that's the US alone. If 50 countries and 28.5 billion, it must be so much more than that. People are not spending that much money maybe on St. Patrick's Day unless, they're getting into drinking, which I don't do. So who knows? We associated, and I've talked about what Valentine's Day is here, or maybe in England or other cultures similar to our own, more so similar to our own. But what about cultural variations? There are definitely many, many cultural variations related to Valentine's Day. Going into this, found a couple of cute notions and ideas. We see here how the Danish people, leading up to Valentine's Day, would press white flowers called snowdrops. And that would signify the beginning of spring as well. So we're seeing that in Denmark. I thought this was particularly funny and either disappointing or impressive, maybe, that people in Japan may gift chocolates. Women would gift chocolates, differentiating between the people that they felt that they had to give chocolates to as an obligation, like their coworkers, and the people that they had romantic interest for. Distinction of honmei for the romantic interest and giri for those that they maybe worked with, coworkers. Mexico, it can be called El Dia del Amor y la Amistad, the Day of Love and Friendship, and therefore celebrating much more as friends and family even, rather than romantic. We talked about Valentine's Day traditions. The first Valentine's Day card we see was France, and we're looking at 1415, as I was mentioning, the imprisoned and being sent to his wife. And now that area, the St. Valentine area, has a 3-day festival for the holiday. In South Africa, I was able to see that it was customary for women to write their love's name on paper and attach it to their sleeves. I had never heard of this tradition. And they would write their crush's name and wear it on their sleeves in hopes that the love is reciprocated. Wear your heart on your sleeve, I guess, right? I don't know if that's where that came from. I don't think it is, but now it has that meaning too. Yet, it should not go without saying, it should be expressed how much Valentine's Day is also not for couples, not for partnered people. I had to make a slide about that because we are simply seeing more and more that is the case. That there is room or space, or that there could be, or even should be, for people who are single or wanting to celebrate Valentine's Day in a single way. We see that more and more ads are showing friendships instead and showing fondness for people. I think I've been getting, I have, no, I actually don't think I know. I've been getting texts from friends more and more that would say, Happy Valentine's Day. Hope you're doing well. How's your partner doing? All of that. Not strictly for love interest. That and also a lot of self-love is what we could be seeing for Valentine's Day. Rather than people, shuffling off and feeling sad for themselves or feeling isolated, they can instead reinforce a feeling of self-worth, of value, and people could do that for everybody else, regardless of romantic or other love that they may have currently. At this moment, most people nowadays do not consider Valentine's Day a religious holiday whatsoever, and definitely not in the ways that I had been describing earlier in the talk. How did this happen? Well, I suggest that Valentine's Day became secular to fit around us as we've become increasingly secular. we have that sense. We're left with a sense that we can celebrate these holidays without being religious, yet also without religions going away necessarily. This is what we're seeing a lot of people, that more and more people are not strictly defining with a particular religion, per se, but they're still feeling a religious connection of sorts. They're still feeling religious without strict lines. I think this is what I'm seeing overall culturally, and I'd be glad to talk with you about that as well. Next slide. So, what's next with Valentine's Day and us? And that was exactly what I was just talking about. And I thought there was a slide about that. Many people will have religious beliefs and participation, even, yet not a clear identification. And we're seeing this overall globally as relates to secularization. This is just a continuation of history. Faiths, religions absorb. And I think that that is happening here as well, that the absorption is more acceptable than the elimination in terms of our global population, our individual population, all of it as relates to what role faith, spirituality, religion have in our modern lives. More and more, Valentine's Day has had a greater appeal as the religious aspects have faded away. And then, like a cycle, circular, the religious aspects further fade away as the secular sense of Valentine's Day is increasingly acknowledged instead. Are you concerned about any of this? Are you worried? My advice, given how's the day after Valentine's Day, go buy yourself some discounted chocolates, flowers, and anything else you're in the mood for, rather than being strictly concerned about any of this in any particular way. Okay? So, I was wondering, as this is a talk, as I'm a secular person, and this is a talk for many secular individuals, do secular people celebrate Valentine's Day differently? Not as far as I can tell. I'm like, when I'm talking with friends, religious or not, there seems to be no clear distinction in that also religion doesn't seem to be particularly linked with Valentine's Day anyhow. I'd be glad, as we're talking now, to know what you think the connection might be between secularism and Valentine's Day, if there is or is not any. Thank you. I really appreciate you joining me for this talk today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. Does anybody have any comments or questions?
Yeah, you said that there were many different versions of Saint Valentine. Was there ever an official Catholic Saint Valentine? And if so, how did he become a saint?
That's one of the senses that I had when I was searching for this. There was a third century Roman Saint Valentine. Yet then, as I was sharing in the talk, the various versions over time about which one there was. I'm going back to my slides. So, to answer your question, I'm seeing here that there are at least 50 different stories of different saints named Valentine. So, to pin it on one particular saint is difficult to say. As I started doing the research for this, doing the work for this, it was instead, well, it could be this one, or actually it could be that one, or over time we thought it was this and I thought it was that. It was just nebulous, really. Also, the nature of the Valentine's Day, it was St. Valentine's feast day. So much of a focus was instead on feasting rather than adoration, rather than love per se.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions? I mean, certainly, growing up Catholic, I don't remember ever having to go to church on St. Valentine's Day. We've heard of the St. Valentine's Day massacre, for example, so we know there's a saint associated with it, but it wasn't, in my memory, a holy day of obligation or anything like that. I only just remember it as a secular holiday. So,
Right, exactly. Was that, I forgot about that, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Was that in Ireland? Was that in England? Where was it?
I don't
I forget
remember.
where
Was that
that
a
was.
I think
Chicago
it was
thing?
in
Chicago.
Somebody
It
did
was,
it.
it was in
Chicago?
Chicago. And it was in Chicago,
Chicago.
and just called the St. Valentine's Day Massacre because that's the day that it occurred, not because
Right,
it was
right.
in honor of St. Valentine. I had read very grisly descriptions of what happened to the actual St. Valentine that tends to pop up on Facebook every year about this time, and don't you feel silly sending roses and chocolates to honor somebody who was, I don't know, decapitated and ground between stones and fed to the birds. I mean, all kinds of horrible things allegedly happened to this Saint Valentine. Anyway, I'll go back to mute.
All right, Clyde.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah,
I was saying Clyde has a question.
yeah.
Hi, Clyde.
Hi, Thomas. Do you have? I found your book on Amazon. I also found it on Audible. So I'm gonna. I listen to a lot of Audible books. So I'm gonna definitely listen to your book. But my question is, do you have like a website or a link tree or a podcast or something like that so we can follow your work?
Well, thank you for asking me that. And yes, thank you for finding my book. I'll express a little bit about my book after I answer your question. I just suggest to people that they Google Thomas Dixon memory because the wide range of media appearances and pieces will come up. I feel it's a little maybe pompous or silly than that they call it fan pages on Facebook, that you can have fan pages. And there is one, Thomas Anthony Dixon Jr. There's also one for Memory. I call them media pages when I'm giving talks or presentations because I just feel silly saying it's a fan page. So that is available on Facebook as well, Thomas Anthony Dixon Jr. And I separated it from my personal page because when I started getting out there, people tried to add me on Facebook, and that felt really weird to people all over the world who don't, you don't know them. Like Facebook being that semi-private space where obviously it's not private. Also, it's not just public, depending on how you set up your profile. So that's why I separated it too. Yeah. Did I answer your question? Was there something else there?
Oh, I didn't. Okay, I will follow your fit, and it's appropriate. I got a little confused. I should follow your fan page, or I should not.
No. You should follow my fan page. That one is
Okay.
Thomas Anthony Dixon Jr. What I was
Okay.
saying is I created the fan page to separate it from my personal page.
Okay, that makes
So the fan
sense.
page is where I am posting everything public. That's where I
Okay.
am. So yeah, if you find Thomas Anthony Dixon Jr., that is the page. I welcome you to follow that. I mentioned this
Okay.
talk there. Like, yes, definitely please add that there. And I welcome you to reach out to me there. So thank you. Yes, I really appreciate that.
Great. Margaret, did you have another
Yes,
comment?
yes. When I became a secular officiant, doing weddings and so forth, I did look into Saint Patrick or Saint Valentine's Day, and I found out that there is one story where in Rome, all the men were being sent out to war, and they were forbidden to have wives. But secretly, this Saint Valentine actually conducted marriages with Roman soldiers about to leave for war. The thinking was that if a potential soldier was recruited, they would not want to leave if they had a wife. And that's why weddings were restricted at the time. But
Yeah.
that's one of the rumors I heard about Saint Valentine's Day.
Yes, Margaret, that is what I heard as well. I was going to share about that too. Thank you for bringing that point up. The idea that single men made for better soldiers rather than married men who might be tied to an area that they would want to go back to and would be thinking about instead of fighting the war. So, yes. And then that was the idea of the clandestine. How do you support love? How do you keep love, the version of love, thriving when you instead are fighting some battle? And how could they help them do that? So, yes. How many times Valentine's
Robert?
Days can be associated with tense love? Is that the word I want to call it? Or like forbidden love of a sort, Yeah.
Robert, do you have a comment or question?
Yeah, I mean, maybe you kind of already answered it, but it was just the title was how it became secular, but I'm still not clear. Was it ever religious?
Yes, in that I'm going back to share about that.
Well, it was a
Yes.
Catholic,
And that
it wasn't it a Catholic priest who was doing that in the Roman times?
it was, well, when we were sharing if it was religious or not, I was going into what it became, right? That's why we were talking about Lupercalia and how it had that sense of fertility and spring and the religious components to it, and then it becoming absorbed into Christianity. So, and then hundreds of years later, it had the romantic meanings. So it was initially about fertility, spring, as I mentioned, trying to make women more fertile, because that was what the ritualistic slapping was about, bestowing fertility. And it was here, thank you for asking, in 5th century, as a result to perhaps Christianize the holiday, Pope Gelasius had declared February 14th as St. Valentine's Day. And this was not a big surprise, as you can imagine. So many holidays, as I was mentioning, become something else as an attempt to subvert them. This has happened what we see in New Year's Day and Christmas. Christmas with Saturnalia, as the skepticism was emerging around that time, right? Why would the shepherds be watching their flocks in December instead of being in their pens? That's one of the criticisms. Carnival and Mardi Gras, Halloween, weddings, who knows what else. We see the holidays being taken over and turned into other holidays. So yes, how it had that religious component before, Lupercalia, and then hundreds of years later, after it absorbed Christianity, and then hundreds of years later, having no real religious connection for pretty much everybody, right? Quote unquote, everybody.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Thomas, for sharing your thoughts about this, the history that you have with us, some of the different traditions we have around Valentine's Day. Very much appreciate your time and sharing this with us and putting this talk together. Yeah,
It was
thank you.
really a pleasure. I wanted to say thank you for the opportunity. It was really fun diving into this. I'm very interested, particularly as it relates to the New Year's trips, but in what I'm wrong about. And this was a chance to learn a lot more about Valentine's Day than I've ever known. And now I can be that person on the at the bar at the friend who talks too much about the holiday that you did not need to know so much about. People who say they did not need to know about Lupercalia. Well, now they can know more about
Now they'll know
Lupercalia than they
about
need
it.
to know than I needed
Great.
to know,
So
honestly. But hey, it helped. It prepared, right?
Thanks.
great. Thanks.
Thanks,
Well,
Tom. Great talk.
I would love to give some time to Thomas Dixon to show us some of his memorabilia from all the countries that he's visited on New Year's Eve.
Thank you for staying around. I really appreciate it. This is a link. Not sure if we have it already, but I wanted to share it as well. The WHYY piece, I feel, does an excellent job of combining my two narratives, the episodic memory loss that I live with and the New Year's Eve travel. I feel like they do a great job of combining the two. And with that, I was going to show you some of the cool, curious things that I've got from over the years. So I actually started going on these trips because of my college girlfriend. She's from Taiwan. Winter break, I went to go visit her family. And what happened? New Year's Eve, I walk around and nothing's happening. And I said, what am I wrong about? This is really bad. I'm a psychology major. This was years before the Weird paper, that Western, educated, industrialized, rich, democratic criticisms of a lot of research. So I said, okay, I'm going to travel. I'm going to find out what I'm wrong about. And I've been doing it by spending New Year's in a new country every year. The rules are really simple. Country I've never been to, safe enough, variety, and doesn't matter if they celebrate New Year's or not. So on that note, I've been to a wide range of places. I can collect magnets that I think are more interesting. Here, this is for Berlin. I was at Brandenburg Gate. That's one of their famous gates or sites, as you could imagine. Morocco, that was my first African country I've been to, and I like this. Sort of collected cute teapot, tea set, table magnet going on there. I was just recently in Costa Rica with my friend, and they always say Pura Vida or the sweet life, the pure life. So I was very fond of that magnet too. And the year that I was in Dubai, the United Arab Emirates, where they set the world record for fireworks, I picked up this Happy New Year, the Burj Khalifa, the world's tallest building. Magnet, this is one of my favorites, as you can imagine. Now, going beyond just magnets, I am a fan of curious little pieces here and there. I like this. Germany are being known for their walking man sign. I thought that was cool to have something at least transformational, because that's what something you could see a lot in Berlin. Some things can be rather timely, and I had to get them because of world events. So you can imagine COVID. I got a Aruba face mask as we're going through the COVID times, the COVID era, once we were able to start traveling again. And one of their phrases is they call themselves a happy island, the one happy island, and you go, you know. It's something that they're known for as well. But then on the bigger side, I went to Yasaka Shrine in Japan from 2007 to 2008, and I was able to get this souvenir that I thought was pretty neat. Bow and arrow. And I'm sure if the text is clear, but the friends, people I went with visiting then, that was a very cool souvenir. I'm very glad I still have this.
I take it you were not able to put that on a carry-on. It would have to be packed.
No, actually, I got really good at arm strength, and I just pulled as far as I could, and then it landed at my apartment back in Philadelphia. So I'm really glad for that one. And lastly, I had to go to a Mexican wrestling match when I was in Mexico City, because why not? And I got myself a Mexican wrestling face mask that I wore one time, I want to say here in Philadelphia. I think it was on April Fool's Day that I wore like a wrestling costume and I walked around wearing a wrestling face mask because why not?
All right.
And the character that was there in one of the characters at the Mexican wrestling match, very popular, was Maximo Sexy. And the crowd would be cheering and chanting, Maximo, Maximo. So the memories that I've gathered from over the years are very heartfelt. And if you have any recommendations for travel, let me know. As I already explained the rules, feel free to let me know. I'd be glad to hear them. And thank you.
Yeah. Do you ever wear that mask in the Mummers Day parade in Philadelphia? Do they still have that?
Ooh, they do still have that, but then I'm not in the country, right? So I have to do it for other celebrations. Maybe if I do
I
it
see.
for St. Patrick's Day parade, or maybe if I do it for other major parades, like
I
that would
have
be
a
a
place where
possibility.
you can wear it. Why don't you,
Oh,
why don't you plan on attending the next secular Day of the Dead? And
Mm-hmm.
by the way, I'll send you Jill Sobiel's beautiful song, Mexican Wrestler. It's really good. But anyway,
please
the
do.
secular Day of the Dead,
Oh,
we have taken it from a religious cultural experience to secular cultural experience. And
okay.
we've done a really good job with that since 2013. So you're welcome to come
And
and
that's what,
enjoy that.
November 1st, right? It's the day
It's
after
either
Halloween.
it's either November 1st or November 2nd, depending on our getting our entertainers and getting, all the people involved. But either date works out for its secular Day of the Dead.
Ooh, Margaret, if you make a note about that, please do. And it'll be a welcome surprise to reach out to me. And you should say, you should wear your Mexican wrestling mask, and I'll be pretty surprised. And I'll be like, oh, okay, wow.
And that
Yeah, sure.
actor that we showed a picture of, John Huertas, he always opens our online events. And we're talking about him going to Dragon Con and explaining the significance of a secular Day of the Dead at Dragon Con. So that'll be fun.
One other question I had, if you're willing to talk about, is can you talk about this memery the way that you
Oh,
your
yeah. As
situation?
right. So my whole
I know it's off
situation
topic,
there.
but it just intrigues me. In your introduction,
No,
it intrigues me. How do you
no,
do?
absolutely. So I ended up writing my book. I'm sorry, that's awesome. and it's available now. It's available. They have the Amazon page. I know Amazon, but that's what it is. It's available ebook, audiobook, and soft cover. It all goes back to November 22nd, 2010. Being hit by the car, living with severe episodic memory loss. And after doctors said, write your memory in notebooks, I said that why? It's 2010. I used Twitter privately instead as my memory. And I spoke openly, publicly about living with a Twitter memory. And people were very interested in that. And yeah. And ever since then, I went to Temple for graduate school. They had an idea incubator space called Blackstone Launchpad. And I said I have an idea for a mobile app. And that began with Memory, and where Memory began and turned into. I can share in the chat here. I have one of my favorite documentary appearances. They did a great job. This was back in the earlier days of Memory, and it's called The Observed Life. This was the DirecTV appearance that Margaret was sharing about. So there's the YouTube link in the chat. Yeah, we're continuing to push for memory advancement. We had thousands of users before, but funding is always an issue. We always need funding opportunities. We have mentors, we have certain supports, but we need funding. We need to grow the application in that way. So if you know anyone who'd be interested in partnerships, who's interested in technology, please feel free to connect them with me. I'm already out there, obviously, publicly as an individual with a brain injury. I'm very comfortable in that sense. So I'm glad to be a champion of memory causes, both for what I call want-based users, people without memory disabilities, and need-based users, people such as myself.
Well, it must have gotten better, though, right?
What's that?
Your memory must have gotten better, or am I misunderstanding?
There is a plateau of memory improvement. So doctors were saying to me, like, now this was back in 2010, my injury. So doctors were saying, like, your recovery, quote unquote, window is like 6 months to 2 years. And after that, you're pretty much done. And yeah, my memory has been pretty much consistent, the same level for a long time now, for over a dozen years. It was back in 2010. So yeah. And then I tell people, so what? The title of my book is I'm Sorry, That's Awesome for that very reason. You tell people you have severe memory disabilities, they will always say, I'm sorry. You tell people that you use a digital memory, they always say, that's awesome. And I hear it within seconds. So I thought, what a great title to play with those expectations. And people would ask, why that title? I tell people it doesn't even matter that I have severe episodic memory loss, which is kind of strange, right? Like nowadays, it doesn't really matter. Like I have lived alone. I travel alone internationally. I earned my master's degree entirely after my injury. I got friends to show up for this talk today. Thank you, my friends. And yeah, it's interesting, that I'm having a full life for various reasons, and that I continue to thrive, and I want to be an inspiration for others with memory concerns and without memory concerns. Please enable yourself. Please feel enabled.
And is this the app that you talked about, the memory? A number of us, I won't know without naming names, are getting older and finding ourselves not remembering as much as we used to. Completely forgetting entire conversations and instances. Is this the kind of thing that could help anybody as they age who don't have a TBI?
Yes, absolutely. That's why I was starting to share the populations that we see in terms of memory use, the want-based users, people who just simply want memory aid, memory assistance, and the need-based users, people with types of disabilities, conditions that severely impact memory, that need tools, that need assistance, myself included. So yeah, and we're looking at funding memory in a similar way as a result, like to get into it just a little bit, like a freemium model, like we see with a lot of services. They have a paid version and a free version, because we could see memory working out like that for people who need some assistance and who need deeper assistance,
And maybe
so I do
even
see this as being for everybody.
Maybe even get it covered by insurance. It'll become so helpful.
Yes, that is something that when I've given presentations and talks and I've spoken with individual groups. Yes, that is a consideration as well. Partnerships. Another term is white labeling. So a company takes it and then they put their name on it. So that's another possibility. Yeah, I'm definitely interested. And I will continue to speak publicly. I will continue to give talks. I will continue to apply for funding. If you know everyone here, anyone that you might be interested in memory, please let me know.
Great. Thank you again. Thanks, Tom, for speaking with us. Thanks, Margaret, for your partnership, and thanks to everyone for attending today. And we hope to see you all next month.